Hail Pandawans and journeymen walking that illustrated path. So as you may recall, our previous video for Valentine's Day, I gave you a little preview of this artwork. Here is the finished artwork. The preview, of course, was I just had finished doing a lot of the black and whites, and I was going to get started on the color. So first, we'll go in here and we'll zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see what we're talking about. I ended up keeping to a kind of a bluer color scheme that I wanted, and I had mentioned in the previous video. Since not everybody sees every video, this may be your first video. Welcome! The previous video I talked about how I love the colors red and orange and gold and all that, and a lot of my images tend to reflect that. So I, on purpose, went with a cooler color scheme in the terms of the hue, not the coolness of it. It's a damn cool image, we all know that, but the color palette is cooler. And so, you know, what's funny is I actually still would have rather have had done this in the reds and all that, but I have a lot of these images that I want to make a book. So a big announcement. No, I'm just kidding. I have this idea of doing this book called The Big Book of Dwarves, and it will feature all my dwarven artwork. And then maybe it's a flip book, not flip like brrr, and you see it animate, but maybe on the other side is The Big Book of Orcs. You know, like maybe it can do something like that. You know, two of my favorite things to draw. But I've been trying to do a bunch of these images, and if I put them in a book, I don't want them all to be the same tone or the same, coloring and lighting and all that. I want it to be different. What's funny is the dragon in this one is actually a red dragon. Is also in one of the other ones is a red dragon as well. But to me, the red dragon is the classic dragon. You know, if you remember the old Dungeons and Dragons, all you grandpas and crypt keepers out there, the red dragon was the biggest, baddest dragon there was. And also, I liked the color on it. I wanted some warmth in this, going to be cool image. So I've been blathering a lot now. Let me show you the step-by-step process for this image, which I call Drunkards and Dragons. So let's remove that and start with, now this is the roughs I did. And I'll zoom in so you can kind of see. Now, for people who aren't artists, in the sense, they'll look at this and go, what is this mishmash of squiggles and scrawls and chicken scratches and all that? Now, artists, it gets a little bit clearer down here. Artists will look at this and go, oh, yeah, I see what you're doing. I've done that many times where working with some of my friends, and they'll send over a rough sketch, and they go, I know it's kind of hard to see. I go, no, I see exactly what it is. The guy there has the knife, and he's got the person held up against the wall, and in the foreground is this. It's like, oh, yeah. Like, these kind of rough thumbnails are, kind of second nature language for us. Now, also, I zoomed these up, but these are probably around this big on the page when I'm drawing them, just so I can kind of see the silhouette, see the, kind of gesture of any movements and stuff. So you can see here, even in these rough ones, like, the two circles, that's two heads. Wow, she's got some big old chesticles there. But they're raising their mugs. And even back here, you can see, sorry, let me use my pencil here. You can see that there is, that's a giant brush. See, I told you how small these are. You can see the roughness of where the horn is going to be. Like I had always intended for it to be a horn in her drinking hand. Even here, you can see it. This one here, you can see it. So a lot of the image is figured out here. You can see, the rough ropes around the dragon's mouth. You can see here, there's like a little arm sticking out of the dragon's mouth, which, you'll see later on. So a lot of it is in these images, but it's just super rough. Here I tried a version of it when it was horizontal. I've tried to stay away from doing horizontal images lately because when they're in a book, they're going to have to be shrunk down to fit on either one side of the page, or they're going to have to be blown up to do, 2 pages. And then as you see, like right here, that's where it'll be cutting if it's like a 2-page spread book. And then this guy's head and this person's torso would be cut off. No, but see, that's what I don't like. I'd rather focus on the portrait version versus the landscape. The horizontal is the landscape. Just because for when it comes to books or even posters, it fits better that way. You can always do the horizontal landscape version book, like the book 300 was done that way, in like landscape format, or at least the volume that I have, and it looks awesome. But it's hard to put on your bookshelf when you put it up. In the portrait version, you're looking at the pages instead of the title. If you turn it to where it fits, it's sticking out beyond all the books and just doesn't look nice. The way they figure that out is to put it in like a bookcase. So okay, so from there, I zoomed up one of the images right here, and that's the one that I chose. This is the one I thought would work best, and so then from there, I'm just going through and I'll go back between the two. So there's the rough version. You can see the dragon's face still is pretty defined. And then I'll go through and I'll make it even more defined. I'll start throwing in things like, let's, since they're drinking, where'd they get their drinks? Well, they got to have a keg. And here's like a little rough of a tankard down here in this corner. And I just start building the image. And it's almost like building a set. In a lot of the images I do, I don't try to make them have like too much far depth or feel too realistic. Like a lot of art nowadays is really beautiful and it always looks like movie stills. And I don't want that. I want my art to look like it's a set. Like when you go to the miniature golf course, there is all you need to see the castle, and it's got the dragon, and it's got the knight on the horseback. It's all kind of just set there. It's not trying to be realistic. It has all the important and cool information right there. And that's what I kind of try to do here. Now, later on, see there's a dead space here. And, I'll show you later on why that's open. But yeah, I like to make, even back in the old game art, we tried to make them so that they were very iconic. So if it was a castle, it had the spires and it had the, the battlements, and it had like 4 towers or 5 towers, something. It wasn't trying to be too clever, too realistic or anything. Plus, if it's, from a top view or you're looking at it, from like in the worm's eye view looking up, you want to have a classic silhouette. You want it to look like a castle and not like a mountain that just has castle bits coming out, or not like, you want it to be very iconic. So a lot of the times when I'm drawing artwork, I like to make them feel like set pieces. So let's zoom in here. And so we got a little bit cleaner version of our rough. And now is when I go in and I do the line artwork. And I'll go back and forth between these so you can see. So here's the more polished line artwork. But as you can see, I'll just go back and forth. The dragon is still largely the same. It's just a cleaner version of it. It has a little bit more detail. Threw in another, keg over here. Still leaving the background pretty loose, but defined it a little bit more. Added some more stalactites or stalagmites, whichever is the right word. I think stalactites are the one from the top. But yeah, so now this is pretty much cleaned up line work. And from there, what do you expect from a guy that doesn't know the difference between stalactites and stalagmites? I'll go in and I'll start doing the tones. And basically all I'm doing is I'm making one layer, usually like a multiplied layer. For people who don't know Photoshop, if you put a layer above a piece of line art called multiply, you can just color, any colors, anything like that. Generally, it'll be darker, right? Unless you have like a nice white background at the very back. But if you basically the multiplier layer is great because it doesn't mess with your line artwork. It's basically like if you were drawing on a sketch pad and you had your nice clean line artwork, and then you had a clear piece of, whatever, plastic, whatever, over your artwork, and you could color right on that and lift it up, and it's not messing with your line artwork at all. It keeps the line artwork clean and pristine, and you can try all different kinds of colors. Okay, so now from here, after starting the tones, you can see I'm leaving the background a little bit brighter, foreground area kind of darker, and then their torso is kind of going to be in between. I'll just start polishing and adding. If you can see between these two layers, I'm making the tops of the dragon a little bit brighter than the bottom. I'm putting this side of the barrel a little bit brighter than the other, but basically just going in and noodling on the stuff till you get everything, pretty much finalized. So here's an even cleaner version. So you can see the differences between, the dragon's eyes here and here. I'm starting to add in little highlights. If you look at the horn here, you can see I've gone in and I've added detail. And what I'm also trying to do is get rid of the black outline, which sometimes I like in images, but a lot of times I don't like it. So if you can see here, there's the black outline. I'll go over it and cover it up, because the black outline kind of takes away from it looking more like a painting, and having it look more like a comic book than a painting. Like, you can still see the black lines heavy here, but I'll try to go over it. And basically what I'll do is at this point, I'm completely happy with the line artwork of my image. So I will basically just flatten all the images, all the layers, I'm sorry, and it'll just be one layer, and I can just go over and draw over everything. You don't want to do that if you think you're going to be adjusting the line work again and things like that. And there is a situation where I needed to readjust some things, but thankfully it wasn't a problem. And here is the pretty much final black and white version of the image. As you can see, not a lot has changed, but it's just mostly the contrast is darker. There's more detail added, and things like that. Like if you look at the dwarves here, there's this is where I put all the detail in. Not much has changed. You can see her mouth probably changes a little bit. You can see his arm, I thought, was a little too long. I don't mind my dwarves having longer arms and stubbier legs, but it felt like a lot bigger than it should have been. But yeah, so this is the sort of the final black and white versions. I'll add a little bit of texture. Sometimes people ask, like, hey, how do you get these cool textures? There's millions of Photoshop brushes that are just texture brushes. Go check them out. And I don't have any ones in particular. I kind of just use whatever. Most of the time, I'll just do texture by hand. But when there's something in the background that I don't want to feel too rendered, like as you can see here, I did some little scratches and doodles and things like that. And then I just took this brush that, almost looks just like a dirty sponge wash or something, and threw it in there for a little bit of texture. I'm not relying on it to give me the art and the detail that I want, but I'm using it as just sort of kind of like how canvas itself adds texture to a painting. And if there's an area that's not really painted, it still at least has a little texture. That's kind of what I'm trying to simulate here. And then there's places too where you can still see brush strokes and all that kind of stuff. So you don't have to go too detailed on the background stuff. And even if you do, it's kind of a waste of time, because I really want my attention, let me make my brush a little bigger, to kind of be focused here. It's the main read should be the heroes or villains, depending on which side of the story you like. They're here. They're the focus. It goes down, shows to the dragon, which hopefully leads to, homeboy down here getting, oh shit, sorry, I cursed. Oh shoot, the ropes are snapping on the mouth, and the dragon got one, and it's eyeballing here. Well, this eyeball's looking up here. This one's looking in the wrong direction, which I fix later, but there's a lot of dead space right here, and that's because I want to have another dragon in the background. After all, this is called Drunkards and Dragons, not Drunkards and Dragon. So we want to have a dragon back here. And so I basically rough that in. Okay, I'm going to do something with that once I get the rest of the picture done. And that was me being lazy or chicken-s. I didn't know how I was going to make the dragon fit back here because we got the stalagmites, we got the arms up, we got all this. And so you'll see in the next few moments, you will see how I remedied that. So now that the tones are all done and set up, now I'm going to do basic colors. In the previous video, you saw me actually starting to work on the basic colors. So this is the first basic color layer. As you can see, there's not really a lot changing. Maybe his mouth I did some more work on. I added some more detail on there, but like specifically look at this area. This is me just taking one layer with color. Sometimes it's a multiplied layer, and I'm just putting red there. What you can also see is watch the characters here. Watch the beautiful couple here. They were bigger in the black and white ones. Right? So I basically had to go in with the little select tool and finally draw all around them, you know, to cut them out because I had flattened the whole image. Now, it's actually easier to do that than to try to select all the individual layers of coloring and this, that, and the other. It's like, this is a piece of art. You've got this far, commit. You can always save it before you do that and then save the new one as, you know, latest version or whatever you want to do. But yeah, get rid of those layers when you can. You don't want to be messing around with a ton of layers. I know most artists do, and most artists really benefit from it. But I have never been one to want to have more than 3 or 4 layers. When I start getting up to 7 to 10, that's usually because I have multiple layers for, well, 3 for the dragon, 3 for the dwarves, 3 for the background, right? And that's usually how it is. And maybe I could create better art if I learn to do more with layers, but I really don't want to. I want to keep it as close to painting an original piece of art as I can without actually having to keep it to painting an original piece of art on canvas. And it's just the style that I'm much more of I like the small box of crayons better than the big box, because after that you're just regurgitating colors and making them watered down versions of their true power and majesty. Brick red? Orange, red, orange. Nah, just give me red. Give me red till I'm dead. Okay, so now I've got the basic colors down, and now I'm going to be going through, and I think I missed a couple areas where I detail the colors, but I'm trying to find that color palette that won't be the standard Samwise the red, not brick red, but red, fire engine, cherry red, whatever color it is, just the red that you see on that crayon box. So now, but without making it go red, because I'm trying to do other colors. So here you can see I'll go in. I've added more details, but I've also tried some different color schemes where it's still a cool blue background. It's not as straight out the box crayon blue, right? It's got a little bit more of a, you know, greenish blue, teal, if you will. But I hate those halfway colors, right? So you'll see as I go forward, I'm still adding more and more, tweaking more. Let's see what else we did. So added the glows to the eyes. Tried to fix the pupils to make them look like they're kind of looking up, but that one here still looks a little off to me. But yeah, if you can see the difference between those colors, it's subtle, but it's good enough. And I detailed up our dwarves, and you know, I'm all about equal. So the dwarf is missing teeth, she's missing teeth. I mean, they're dwarves. They eat rocks for a living, right? And all that carbonated beer with all the carbs that turns to sugar and just rots their teeth out. So here's the old Sammy coming back in like, yo, buddy, what if we warm it up a little bit with a little more reds and yellows? And I'm like, okay, let's do it, because it looks good. And by adding these colors, it's making, you know, I added some more, you know, greens here too. But it's giving everything a cool complexion, but it's catching on like kind of a greenish tone. And while I like that, well, let's see what else gets tweaked while I'm here. So it's basically like, look, it's just adding more detail. And you could do this in the black and white all the way to the end, but I like to get the black and white, the tones basically 80%, maybe 90%, and then let these details sort of pop in. So as you can see here, they got this kind of golden glow, and there's more greens. Here, they got a little bit more blue to them. Like if you look at the underside here, it's got more blue, where here it gets a little bit more greens. And what's funny is I'm actually liking this color scheme, even though it's something that I don't normally do. If you look at the cover for the book I did, it's called Brutal, The Art of Samwise. The goal of that, which I think was stupid from me on my end for doing this for my first art book, is I wanted to do a color scheme that's radically different from what I normally do. So the color scheme was basically yellow, orange, and green. And it actually ended up being one of my favorite ones, even though if you're selling your first art book, the cover should look as much like your stuff as you can, because that's what people know you for and what you've got known doing. But it's okay, though. It came out really good, and I like that. So this one here is kind of working out to where it's a color scheme that I don't normally do, but I like it. And now, so I'm going into some of the final details. You know, you can see here I'm adding some different warm tones down here. Going back to my old tricks, I know. But that's okay. It doesn't last forever. So there you go. There's just adding some more shadows, and even the air and atmosphere up here gets some kind of weird orangish red tones. Hey, there's our dragon that we forgot about. Let's get him out of there. But yeah, again, even with all the color tweaks, you'll notice some just little tweaks in her arm. I changed the band from gold to silver because it was just, everything was reading like a big yellow mess over there, having the band be silver instead. So lots of like little tweaks here and there. All right, and then let's bring this back up, because the dragon, I didn't know what I was going to be doing, because I was putting it off to the last minute. Now, I still got it done, but I put it off to the very last, which was okay, because what turned out to be the problem, at least what I found out, was the background itself was too cramped. So as you can see here, I just almost done with the picture, right, except for the dragon, blasted it out and changed it back to the nice blue tones. Yeah, I noodled a lot on that, fighting against my own internal color palette that wanted me to do it. It's like, nope, you said you were going to do it on a video, and there have been dozens of people who have seen that video, so you better make sure you keep your word. Okay, so we got more room, and now we have room for a dragon. Or maybe two. Look at that. I had enough room to kind of throw in two dragons, or dagrons, as Strong Bad or whoever his big chunky brother is calls him. Dagron. That's good, man. You go. Yeah, so I mocked up another background, and basically all I did was I selected and went around this whole image very meticulously so I could control it, right? Not as loosey-goosey as I am here. And I cut them and the dragon out. And so anything behind it, I put them on the top layer. And anything behind it, and I'll show you in a moment, I have it still. Anything behind it will be behind them, and I can draw freely and not worry about, see how this is kind of messing up her thing, or, you know, his whatchamacallit area is getting fogged out from the color tweaks I'm doing. I go, that's okay. We'll fix it. And so here's the more final version of the stalagmites, right? And see how this is like kind of covering it up over. It's like, oh no, you're ruining the art. Don't worry. I have this whole thing, this whole part saved separately. So I can go and do that. And oh yeah, see, I'm adding now some fog, and it's covering up everything. It's ruining it all, Samwise. What are you doing? That's okay. I have that whole layer there. And see how by having it all on one layer, everything behind it's good, and I can just cover it up. Now, if you will notice, there's been some additions. I added some more details to the barrels. I add a mug because maybe he was drinking. They were all celebrating, and they were, you know, getting a little too close up here, and he got left out. And when they get left out, they get snatched up and devoured by the dragon, whose eyeball now looks to be looking better. Now, I had a quandary, Pandawans. So look at that logo, came out good. That's pretty fun. I had a quandary. I had drawn in this mug early on, and it's like, well, so they all have their drinking vessels, right? Their vessels. You know what? While I'm looking at it, I may want to go in and color this thing a different color. It's kind of getting lost in there. So back to the story. Sorry. This mug here, I'm like, well, why did they bring 4 mugs and 2 kegs? Because clearly 1 keg is enough for 2 dwarves, right? Well, why'd they bring 2? Well, because there were 4 people. Where's this 4th person, you say? Well, let's see if we can find him. And that's it right there. No, it's not one long, gigantic dwarf. Nope, the 4th person, he got snatched up too. And you see his little boot with his little treads and all that. And the reason why this keg remains untapped, right, is because they haven't finished drinking it, because they're a keg per 2 dwarves, right? That's how it goes. But, so they still got, yeah, so he doesn't have his mug. Okay, so I am pretty much done with this image. I'm happy with, the level of rendering. I'm happy with the dragons back there, not just 1, but 2. So like while they're celebrating, this one's coming and it's like, okay, you messed with our mama, our friend, our sister, son, whatever it is, they're coming in. So I wanted to add some effects. So here is where I just take 1 layer and I add all the effects. I wanted to have some smoke. And like the dragon's like getting pissed off. That's why the ropes are snapping and stuff like that. I added in a little smoke for the other dragons up here too, which you can't really tell. What else did we do? So see here, I don't know if you all have picked up on this, but the dragon has a broken horn, right? And it's bleeding. Well, why? Oh shit, that's why, because she broke the horn off and is using it for her drinking mug. Because they must have forgot one. And, or maybe she was noble and this guy forgot his mug. So she gave him her mug and she just busted off a horn. Or who knows? Maybe she forgot it. So anyways, this is sort of the fun little things I like to do with pictures. We have stories, right? We got the keg. Cool little logo. This is a G, and this is a B. What's that stand for? Grimbeer, which is based off of my character, who's also a dwarf, Grimbeard, from Tales of the Last Dwarf. He's got his mug, so he at least got a sip before he got ganked. The rope is breaking. Little small things, right? The smoke, this is mostly for visuals. Now, this is the fun thing that I liked. I thought this was, because this was originally done around Valentine's Day. Sorry, Valentine's Day. So she breaks the horn off. She's got the bloody horn, foaming horn of ale, mead. She's in here. She's got knocked out teeth. She's got blood on her face from drinking from the bloody horn. And who's this over here? He's got blood on his lips because he was smooching the girl who was drinking from the bloody horn that came from the broken dragon in the house that Jack built. That's how the poem goes, right? And then all that's left to do is add that little signature. So this actually took a little longer than I expected because I was being wimpy and afraid. How am I going to commit the dragon without drawing the background? Well, sometimes you have to destroy the walls to let that dragon come in. That sounded kind of gross. To unleash the dragon, and not just one. Double dragon. Not the game, which is a great game. I don't know if you youngsters have played it. But that's it. Woo, look we're at 29 minutes of me rambling. Let's do one little last walk through or scroll through and see I like how this dragon came out with the cool flatness of the horns and all that. But as you can see, a lot of it's still really loose and rough. Some of it's more detailed. But this was really fun doing, and I'm glad that I remembered to save so many layers this time, so where I could show you the walkthrough. It's not all of them. It's not everything that I did, but it's hard to remember to save the stuff when you're creating and having a great time. All right, Pandawans and Journeymen. That's all for this Ouija recording. I want you to remember your ABCs. Always be creating. Cheers and beers.